All right, 717. Quick video this week. I had a couple of questions that someone texted in on the sermon from last week, the message from last week. And the first one is, what does Paul mean when he refers to himself as a drink offering? Well, in the Old Testament, when you came to the temple, one of the things you could do is bring a drink offering, and it was poured out on the altar. When Paul refers to himself as a drink offering, I think it's because Paul views himself as his life as being poured out for the cause of the gospel. And so when he refers to himself as a drink offering that's being poured out, I think he's referring to the way he's living his life sacrificially. He's giving everything he has for the sake of the gospel. And so he refers to himself as being poured out as a drink offering, which was offered to God. And so he's offering his life for the cause of Jesus Christ. And so that's why I think Paul refers to himself as a drink offering. Another question was, Paul refers to their generation as perverse and corrupt. What about our generation? Is this generation perverse and corrupt? And I think the evidence of that is unfortunately everywhere around us. But when Paul says this generation, I don't think he necessarily means 50 AD Roman Empire. I think what he means is all generations until really the coming of Christ. He's speaking of the current age, this age until Christ comes. And the reason I say that is that Paul has several end times references in Philippians that he says, until Christ comes, we'll do this. Until Christ comes, this is the way we have to live. So my suspicion is when he says that this generation, he means this time period until Christ returns, because he has the eschaton, the end of the age in Christ Jesus in mind, and almost everything he says in this book. So I think that's what's going on. And then the last question is, how do we prove ourselves as innocent and blameless? And right out of the text he says, do all things without grumbling and complaining. Apparently, grumbling and complaining about what we're supposed to do to serve Christ or to avoid sin, to love others, if we grumble and complain about those things, I think what Paul's getting at is that's a sign of what's going on in our heart, that it's a good barometer of the condition of the soul. And if we're grumbling and complaining about doing the right thing, this is probably an indication that we are not blameless and innocent, that there's something really going on inside of us. But if we can do what we are asked to do with a good attitude, do the right thing with the right attitude at all times, Paul is saying here that this is how you prove yourself blameless and innocent. So it is not just enough to do what we're supposed to do, but to do what we're supposed to do with the right attitude is what proves us to be blameless and innocent. Just going to church, but complaining about having to go, or complaining about how long the sermon is, or something like that, or that the music wasn't my preference, that's not really going to church, and that doesn't prove us to be legitimate church goers. And so Paul, I think, attributes a complaining, a disgruntlement to having an impure heart, and thus proves ourselves not to be innocent. However, if we can do things that we're supposed to do with the right attitude, it is through that right attitude that we reflect the condition of what's really going on in the heart and mind, so that what we say and do is backed up by the condition of our heart, our mind. And I think that's what proves someone to be innocent. When they do the right thing with the right motives, with the right attitude, that's how we prove to the world that this faith in Jesus Christ and this imitating of his life with our life is the right thing. All right, so that's the few questions from this last passage. Next week, we finish out chapter 2. I hope to see you Sunday night, 7:17.